Liza Rothkoff, who will present a research about contra-free loading in domestic pet dogs. Hi, Lisa.
Hello.
You can share your screen. Yeah, perfect. No, I mean, like, yeah, you can see it, okay?
Yeah.
Maybe Amanda, you have the good view.
Yeah, I can see it. Can you see it?
Yeah. Yeah, you are in presenter side, so like we're having the wrong view.
Got it.
I think you have to go in presenter view and then you have to. Oh yeah, no, it's perfect now.
Hold on, let me stop sharing my screen and then I'll try again.
Yes, no so for the viewers, no worries. We are just experiencing what happens many times with PowerPoint. The impossibility to find a good way to share. No, we are again not in the good view mode. But I think you can change. No, you can change in the user slideshow maybe, or
I'll just. Okay, hold on. Is that? Use slideshow.
Yeah, I think now it works. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So like you can start.
Okay. My name is Liza, and I will be presenting my research on if domestic pet dogs contra-free load. So before diving into the definition of contra-free loading, I would first like to pose a question to kind of get you acquainted with the concept. So if you think about your own pet or your own dog, do you think that they would rather eat from a standard bowl or an enrichment feeder? So a standard bowl, as seen as on the left, is thought of as being easier to obtain food from, whereas an enrichment feeder, the dog or pet needs to work for the food. So if you think that your pet would rather use an enrichment feeder, then your pet might be a contra-free loader. Contra-free loading has two definitions. The first definition refers to a preference, and this preference is more than chance to work for a resource instead of obtaining the same resource freely available. Depending on which paper you read, sometimes it's more than chance, sometimes it's 50% to define this preference. And the second definition refers to a willingness to work for a resource instead of obtaining the same resource freely available. This willingness refers to any effort put forth whatsoever to obtain this resource. And this resource is typically food, typically been studied in food. However, it has been studied in water as well as other sensory resources. And what's so interesting about contra-free loading is that it opposes one of the basic tenets of animal learning, and that animals should maximize rewards and minimize costs. And this has been seen in both domesticated and non-domesticated species. So it's been seen in domesticated species such as farm animals like goats and pigs, and non-domesticated species such as maned wolves and giraffes, as well as in humans. So there are numerous reasons put forth as to why animals might contra-free load. However, I'll only be focusing on a few today. So the first one that I'll dive into is play. So there is this theory that since play is reinforcing, that animals may think as foraging behavior and contra-free loading behavior as playful behavior, and that this action of contra-free loading might be rewarding in itself. And also, contra-free loading could provide relief from boredom for animals who might not get much stimulation otherwise. And the final I will also be talking about the information primacy model. So the information primacy model refers to that an animal prefers to, in uncertain environments, that animal will have a desire to look for resources, and it's important for this animal to do that. And this ties into an interest in the environment and a motivation for the animal to learn. The final reasoning behind contra freeloading that I'll be talking about is ethologically relevant behavior. So it is thought that contra freeloading could be intrinsically valuable and kind of awaken these natural feeding behaviors in animals. So it's important to study contra freeloading in dogs because puzzle feeders can allow dogs to use problem-solving skills, which can help them if they are bored or have an active mind. It can help them calm down. And enrichment can satisfy the need to display natural feeding behaviors. And also, dogs are typically food motivated. So although there are individual differences, we were confident that if we gave dogs a food task, that they would reliably eat the food. And dogs are also neophilic, meaning that again, there are individual differences, but dogs as a whole do like new things and new experiences. So we were confident that if we gave the dogs a new feeding setup, that they would eat from it. So to dive into the research questions, we wanted to ask, we wanted to see if dogs prefer to contra freeload. So what we did was we offered dogs a supplement and a tray of food simultaneously. We wanted to know which one they approached first. And again, this preference is more than chance. And then we also wanted to know if dogs were willing to contra freeload. So would the dog put any effort at all to approach the snuffle mat first out of 10 trials when also presented with a tray of food simultaneously? So to test this, we used a community science approach. We asked owners to come pick up supplies from our lab in New York City. And then they conducted the trials at home. And we gave them instructions of how to do it and tips and pointers after they sent in all of their video submissions. So the dogs had 14 sessions in all. The first 4 sessions were acclimation feedings, where the dogs were given a different proportion each feeding of food so that to get them used to the amount to get them used to the food that will be in each feeder and to get them used to the feeding setup. So for the first and second session, for the first session, there was 25% of the food in the tray, in the snuffle mat, and 75% in the tray. And then the next 2, there was 50% of the food in each. And then for the final session, there was 75% of food in the supplement and 25% of food in the tray. And this will also, we were hoping that this would take away some of the novelty of a new feeding setup by the time that the test sessions started. So then the dogs had 10 test sessions and they had 50% of their meal rations in each feeder. And our participants were 38 domestic pet dogs. We had 22 female and 16 male dogs between the ages of 1 and 11 years old. So to give you a visual feeding setup, the dog would be released 6 feet from the feeding setup, so the tray and the snuffle mat, and those were placed 2 feet apart. And then 4 feet in the other direction was, we told the owners to place the camera there so that they could record the session. So to give you more of a visual, the dogs were released by their owners. And then, so this is Sadie. She goes to eat her food and she goes to the tray first, which we found many dogs did do that. And then Sadie will finish the food from the tray and then, or most of the food from the tray, and then she'll go over to the snuffle mat and start eating from the snuffle mat. So our data was analyzed in, first we got owner videos submitted to us through email or Dropbox, and then we coded those videos using Forest, and we coded for first approaches. So this was, did the dog approach the tray or the snuffle mat first? And we used one measure of, we made one measure of eating, sniffing as approach because it was not always clear whether the dogs were eating or sniffing the snuffle mat or the tray. And we had an inter-rater liability on first choice location of the supplement versus the tray of 100%. Our data was analyzed in Jamovi using the contra freeloading measure proportion of first choices for the snuffle mat. So to answer our first question, if dogs prefer to contra freeload, we found that dogs do not have the preference for contra freeloading. So as you can see here, 0 is on the x-axis is total preference for the tray, and 1 is total preference for the snuffle mat. And we found that majority of our dogs did not have this, or a good portion of our dogs did not have this preference, in that we would label them freeloaders. We found that the middle grouping of dogs, the dogs in green, we said that they had no preference and that they did not show a preference for either feeder. And we had one dog who, shown in orange, who we would label a contra freeloader, and that she went to the snuffle mat 8 out of 10 trials. To answer our second question, if dogs are willing to contra freeload, we found that dogs are actually willing, even if they don't prefer it. So similar to the other graph, 0 represents total preference for the tray, and 1 represents total preference for the snuffle mat. And we only had 8 dogs who were not willing at all to go to the snuffle mat first. So out of all 10 sessions, the dogs went to the snuffle mat first 0 times, and they went to the tray 10 times. But we did have 30 dogs who were willing, and that they went at least once to the snuffle mat first out of 10 trials. So to recap, we found that domestic dogs do not prefer to contra freeload, but we did find that they are willing, since most of our dogs did go to the snuffle mat first at least once. And our results suggest that individual differences should be considered when providing enrichment, that owners should take this into account, and that not every dog will enjoy certain forms of enrichment, and they might enjoy some forms of enrichment more than others. Some future directions that can be taken. Other enrichment options could be studied. So, such as a toy reward to see if dogs will work for a toy, or even it could be studied if dogs will work for water, like has been studied in other species. It'll also be interesting to study free-ranging dogs to see if free-ranging dogs, due to their since they don't have owners, it would be interesting to see if maybe this link of why domestic dogs do not have this preference is because they are used to their owners giving them things and attending to their every need. So since free-ranging dogs don't have this, maybe that could be interesting to study. And different difficulty levels could also be studied. There is evidence in the literature that different difficulty levels of a contra freeloading task do affect contra freeloading behavior, and that the easier the task, the more contra freeloading behavior that will be displayed. So this could also be studied with dogs with different difficulty levels of enrichment feeders, and can also be studied in other companion animals. It has been studied in cats and some farm animals, however, to see if this result rings true in other animals, or maybe this is just a dog and a cat thing. This should be studied further. So for our limitations, we did have owner error because the sessions were conducted at the owner's homes. We did find that there was owner error, and the owners did make some mistakes, which we try to mitigate as much as possible. But we did tell the owners that if there were any glaring mistakes, that they should redo sessions. So we don't expect that this should have had too much of an effect on our data set. And we also limited the study to dogs who eat dry food. So because we were using a fabric snuffle mat, we did not want wet food to get into all the crevices of the snuffle mat, and it would be really difficult for owners to clean. So we did limit it to dry food. So it's possible that some dogs may not have been eating their preferred food. And we also may have been limited by naturalistic conditions. We wanted this to be as natural as possible and in line with the owner's and dog's normal feeding schedule. So we asked owners to conduct the study at the normal feeding time. So it was not standardized across all dogs. So maybe this could have had an effect on our results. I would like to thank Alexandra and Kayla for helping me code and for helping me to get the materials together. I would also like to thank all the participants and their owners for helping out with the study, as this could not have been done without them. But here are some of our dogs. Here are some more dogs. Any questions?
Thank you, Lisa. It was really interesting. Actually, we already have some question in the chat. The first question from Leah Fluffsai. Thank you for this talk. Did you get data on how dogs progress through the 10 repetitions? Are they going more towards the mat further in the experiment, or the opposite maybe?
Yeah, so we did. We wanted to see if maybe the novelty wore off. So we did conduct an analysis on whether the first 5 sessions were substantially different than the final 5. So if session 1 to 5 was different from session 6 to 10, and we did not find any difference there. So it seemed like dogs were pretty consistent throughout.
Okay. So we have another question from Amanda Fasciol. Were all participants the same breed? Did you see any breed patterns, or do you expect a difference based on the breed? Maybe even based on size, small versus large, or purebred versus mixed?
Yeah, so we, since we were using pet dogs, we really could not account for types of breed. And we also did not have, since we had majority mixed breeds, so we had about 19 mixed breeds and the rest were purebred. However, we had 4 golden retrievers and the rest were all we were unable to conduct any analyses on breed differences in this because we did not have enough of each breed to do that. However, it is possible that certain breeds could have different contract-related behaviors. We only had 1 lab. However, it's possible that I know there are some studies out there on that certain breeds are more prone to obesity, like labs. So it is possible that maybe if we limited it to just certain breeds, and if we could see maybe labs are different than pugs, it's possible that because some breeds have certain genetic differences that they could eat faster or just be more prone to choosing a certain type of apparatus to eat from.
Actually, we have a following up on this question from David McCluskey, who say also that maybe find some difference according to the type of dog, like for instance, hunting gun dogs, working dogs, etc.
Yes. Yep.
No, good.
Yeah, so that is another future direction that I do hope to study is this in working dogs. So dogs who are used to working for their food, if maybe they do show more contrafreelating behavior because they're used to this and they typically work for their food and work for toys. And so that is actually my current lab that I'm in right now. We're doing detection work. So that is a study that I hope to do with detection dogs.
Mm-hmm. So there's Leah Sai who say thank you for the answer. And I will have myself 2 last questions. The first one is that are you planning or did you maybe try to test some dog after a certain time of starving? Of course, not something that affect their health, but because I would expect that their internal state regarding starvation would also affect this desire to go for to work to have the food.
Yeah, so that was not something that we looked at because we wanted this to be as natural as possible. Since we were using pet dogs, we didn't want to starve any of the dogs. However, there is evidence in the literature that in other animals, especially in rats, that they, when starved, that they show less contrafreelating behavior. So hunger is definitely a factor in other animals. I don't know if this would be a factor in dogs, but in other animals, this is definitely a factor in in animals who are food deprived for a certain amount of time. They typically do show less contra-freeloading behavior. So they prefer the free food.
Okay. And so my last question was that, like, so you insisted on the fact that indeed you ask the owner if they did make error or these kind of things. But what type of system or technique did you use specifically in order, for instance, to identify if there was any clever ants effect, these kind of things?
Yeah. So pretty much what we did was we asked owners to, if the videos did not meet our guidelines. So we did have many guidelines that we asked owners to follow. We had a very detailed list written out. So if owners did not follow any of these guidelines, we asked them to redo the session. There were also some instances where owners did not counterbalance the sessions like we had asked them to. So, but we did run analyses to see if any of this affected our results, and it did not.
You did analyze the behavior of the owner itself, or not at all?
Yeah, so we did not analyze the behavior of the owner. We did not have an IRB for this study, so this was solely on analyzing the dogs.
Yeah, no, I understand, but that will be interesting actually. But
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Lisa. So if anyone has more questions for Lisa, go on Discord and on a dedicated channel. I'm sure that she will be happy to reply. And so for now, we will start the last poster session of the day. We invite all of you to take to just enjoy this 20 minutes in order to go watch the poster from this list that you can see now. So you can watch them either on Discord, either directly on YouTube. And do not hesitate to interact with the author of